This video was sponsored by Lenovo Legion and Intel. Hello and welcome to the ScatterVolt channel, and today I want to bring you guys 4 different budget gaming PC templates anybody can replicate for themselves if you want to build your own computer in early 2022. Okay, but anyways, I'll be detailing 4 different builds, one being $500, $600, $700, and $1,000, 2 of which include dedicated graphics cards that I've shown to be in stock, pretty reliable in terms of consistent pricing, and won't be obliterating your bank account. This video is taking advantage of the easing graphics card shortage that we're seeing right now in early 2022. So if you want to help spread this video to other want-to-be PC gamers looking to build a gaming PC instead of buying a pre-built one, then give this video a thumbs up. And if you like budget PC gaming content in general, you might want to consider subscribing to the ScatterVolt channel. So the first budget PC gaming template we're going to look at includes a dedicated graphics card, and I think is pretty awesome for 1440p gaming. But first, I do got to give a thank you to the sponsor of this video. This is the Lenovo Legion 5i, featuring the latest 11th gen Intel Core processors and mobile nvidia GeForce RTX 30 series GPUs. And to be fair with you, this is a pretty groovy gaming laptop. Why groovy? Well, in short, at least for this top of the line model that I have here, it combines the fastest Intel Core i7 mobile processor with a power efficient RTX 3070 series graphics card in a really nice and tight looking package that I really don't think you'll be dissatisfied with when it arrives at your doorstep. And because of those specifications, 1080p high refresh rate gaming isn't going to be a problem at all on the Lenovo Legion 5i. Which means if you want to boot up your favorite esports gaming title and have those sky high frame rates that allow you to have the lowest reaction times possible to give you that slight edge in online gaming, then this laptop can definitely do that. Or if you just not want to stress out at all on the possibility of running your incoming AAA title on this laptop at least a graphically pleasing setting, you won't have to worry about that thanks again to the specifications in the Legion 5i. But it doesn't end there for the Legion 5i, thanks to additional features like Legion AI Engine, which will optimize system performance through dynamically tuning the CPU and GPU power delivery on this laptop for even more frames per second. Now, other than performance, the design of the Legion 5i is actually quite clever. On the right, you're given a regular USB port for ideally a gaming mouse. On the left, you're given a USB Type-C port, say for your mobile device, and all of the important stuff is on the back of the laptop, out of the way of your hands, like the Ethernet jack, HDMI port, additional USB ports, and the power port. So say what you want about Lenovo Legion laptops, but they know what they're doing. So combine that gaming performance and clever design with improved cooling thanks to its Cold Front 3.0 technology and Q Control 4.0 technology, for optimal fan speed and voltage control, along with increased battery life, and one of the better built-in keyboards in my opinion for a gaming laptop. And you can see why the Legion 5i is at the top of its class. So if you want to learn more about the Legion 5i, then click the link at the top of the description. Okay, let's kick it off with the $1,000 gaming PC build template, which is going to center around a 6-core i5 processor, an ATX B560 motherboard, 16 gigabytes of 3600 megahertz cast latency 18 RAM, a Radeon RX 6600 graphics card, a higher end 500 gigabyte M.2 SSD, a 600 to 700 watt 80 plus gold power supply, and an ATX case. So this is pretty surprising, I think, for a $1,000 gaming PC in 2022 because of that RX 6600. I've seen it mostly go right now for below $470 on Amazon and Newegg, but sometimes they go as low as $430 online, or in my case, at my local Micro Center, I picked one up with an open box deal for $380. And that card, in tangent with an i5 6-core processor like the 10400 and 11400F, is going to deliver solid 1440p gaming performance, anywhere from 60 frames per second to 240 frames per second, depending on the game. My only gripe would have to be, I wish there was a little bit more budget for the i5 12400F, which is the new Alder Lake i5 processor that is definitely faster than the 10400F and 11400F we're using in this build. but it's a little bit too expensive right now. And same goes for the motherboards that are recommended for it. And also availability is a little bit weird with that new chip. So we're sticking it with the i5-10400F and 11400F because their stock and availability has been awesome the last 2 months, and the pricing has been low on them as well. The only other things I have to say about this PC build guide template would have to be, make sure you opt for a slightly higher end M.2 SSD. Just go ahead and set yourself up with a nice DRAM supported 500GB M.2 SSD that you can rely on for the entirety of your use with this gaming PC. And of course, the same goes for the power supply. 80 plus gold, 600 to 700 watts is going to be actually more than what you need for this gaming PC, but that extra wattage is there in case you ever wanted to upgrade from the RX 6600 to something that's higher end that'll use more wattage, especially with the rumors that we've been hearing over RTX 4000 and RX 7000 using a lot more wattage. So go ahead and set yourself up for success with a slightly higher wattage power supply. Next, let's talk about my $700 gaming PC build, which is going to use an i3-12100F. That is a specific choice. Make sure that's chosen. An micro ATX H6110 motherboard, 16 gigabytes of either 3600 megahertz or 3200 megahertz RAM, a Radeon RX 6500 XT, a budget 500GB M.2 SSD that preferably still has DRAM, a 500-watt 80 plus bronze power supply, and a budget micro ATX case. Now, the first thing I'm going to say is that the RX 6500 all around is a pretty lackluster graphics card, unless it is on a PCI Gen 4.0 interface, which right now is only supported on higher end Ryzen 5000 series CPUs and all 12th gen Alder Lake CPUs. So for this gaming PC, it is imperative that you use the i3-12100F because it's $110. It's the cheapest processor we can fit into this gaming PC that'll yield really excellent gaming performance with that RX 6500 XT because it's the cheapest processor you can buy right now that supports PCI Gen 4.0. And then with that, the H610 motherboard is going to suit that well. I mean, it's going to work with the i3. It supports 12th gen processors, and I don't think you'll be getting a super high-end K-series processor anytime soon. And either way, it's only going to be about $100. Then 16 gigs of RAM is going to be good. The RX 6500 XT is pretty much going to put you mostly at 1080p, 60 to 144 frames per second gaming, but it'll still be miles ahead of integrated graphics, which we'll be discussing in the other two builds later in this video. And then make sure you get a budget M.2 SSD, that's 500 gigabytes, that has a DRAM controller. I'm going to say that again, make sure it has a DRAM controller. DRAM. Then a 500 watt 80 plus bronze power supply is still going to be more than what you need for this gaming PC, even more so for the RX 6500 XT since it doesn't use that much wattage. And then a budget micro ATX case will do you good and should put you at about $750. And then for the last two budget gaming PC templates in this video, both of them I think are great starter configurations if you can't afford a dedicated graphics card right now, but want to take advantage of some of the most powerful integrated graphics on the market, which for those of you who have seen my last two PC build guide videos, you know exactly what I'm about to talk about. So for the $600 gaming PC, I recommend you use a Ryzen 7 5700G along with a micro ATX B550 motherboard, 16 gigs of 3600 megahertz at 3200 megahertz RAM, a budget 500 gigabyte M.2 SSD with DRAM, and then a 500 watt to 700 watt 80 plus bronze power supply, which I'll go into more later why there's a range, and then another budget micro ATX case. So this is pretty much the same thing that I did for my $600 gaming PC build guide I released back in January of this year. And this is going to give you some pretty surprising 1080p gaming performance, and you should be able to throw pretty much any modern day free-to-play game onto this computer and it'll give you above 60 frames per second and it won't look really bad. Also keep in mind, at the end of the day, you're getting an 8-core processor in this build, so when you do get a dedicated graphics card, that 5700G shouldn't have any bottlenecking issues whatsoever. Also, the 5700G is a really great overclocker, and that's what I demonstrated in that PC build guide video. So make sure you overclock the CPU and integrated graphics portions of the 5700G so you can get the most gaming performance possible, which is only going to be doable if you get an aftermarket CPU cooler, which again, in that build guide, I show you exactly how to do that. And then finally, to touch back on the power supply, Again, anticipating a future dedicated graphics card upgrade. 500 watt 80 plus bronze power supply is going to be fine for this gaming PC if you're going to shove in like an RX 6600, 6500 XT even, or like an RTX 3060. But if you want to get one of the new RTX 4000 or RX 7000 series GPUs that could be releasing later this year, you're going to want to look at 700 to 800 watts for your power supply. So just get a power supply that you think will be most adequate for what sort of graphics card you could be aiming for maybe 6 months to a year from now. And then for the last budget gaming PC template in this video, which is pretty much the same thing as the $600 one, my $500 one has the exact same specifications, but instead uses a 6-core Ryzen 5600G APU, which again is just like the 5700G. It's a CPU and a GPU in one chip. Though despite what you may think, the performance difference between these two chips is actually not as great as you think, because at the end, they're only separated by 2 cores, 4 threads, and some IPC differences. But other than that, this $100 difference isn't going to result in like a huge FPS difference. So I'm still pretty comfortable in recommending the 5600G if you can't afford that 5700G. But just like that chip, 1080p basic gaming performance is still going to be pretty nice on this computer. 1080p 60 to 144 frames per second, depending on the game, is very realistic, though you'll have to crank down the settings a little bit to meet those target frame rates. And just like the last one, this will be a great starter computer. And when you do eventually get enough money to afford a dedicated graphics card, you can slap that right in, depending on how big your power supply is, and be able to experience full PC gaming with a dedicated graphics card. So that is it for this budget gaming PC template video. And if you enjoyed it, well, actually, let's be real. If you made it to this point in the video, give it a like, because that means I think you enjoyed all my information. And if you like the style of presentation, I know this set looks kind of boring, but that's because I repainted the walls. Do consider subscribing. Any bit on this channel counts. Seriously, not to sound biased, but I think any like or subscribe on this channel is going to matter way more than, say, a much bigger channel. Okay, maybe that did sound kind of opinionated. Yeah, I'm sorry. So with all that said, thank you so much for watching, and this is the ScatterVolt channel, signing out.